You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
I'm Jim Gordon of Beers and Gordon. I just want to talk about things you see in movies, TV, that you just can't do in the courtroom. I wish you could. The reality is, I love courtroom dramas. I think they're very interesting. It's part of the reason I wanted to go into law, was watching courtroom dramas when I was younger, and I thought I wanted to break those puzzle pieces down. And that's what trial is. It's a big puzzle, and you're trying to break that down. But so much that happens and is dramatized on TV or in the movies just doesn't happen in the courtroom. My wife even said, when she saw me the first time at trial, she said, it's a lot of procedural things and it's kind of boring. So some of the things you'll see in movies and TV that just don't happen in the courtroom. The biggest thing is they pick juries. Just watching a movie recently, Juror Number 2, great movie by Clint Eastwood. And in front of the jury, they're saying, accept juror number 1, yes or no. That is not how it happens in jury selection. In fact, if it happened that way, it'd be a problem, because then juror number 1 would know the defense attorney didn't want him on and the judge kept him on. So that is not what happens. What actually happens in jury selection is the jury gets kicked out of the room. We sit there with the judge and say, do you accept juror number 1 or 2? Do you have a challenge for cause? Do you have anything like that? So that's one of the biggest things I always see. It's more dramatic to watch them look at their face and look at the attorneys, but that's not the way it works. Going back to that, can you handle the truth? That is not what would happen. You can't badger witnesses like that. And more importantly, Jack Nicholson yells back at him and Tom Cruise says, I think I deserve the truth. You can't, as an attorney, say what you deserve. You can't talk about yourself. You can't make it about yourself. So that would never happen. As much as it's dramatic, it was a great scene, that's not what happens in the courtroom. What also doesn't happen in the courtroom is giving a question, asking a question, and turning to the jury and giving a speech about that question. A perfect example, some people remember Miracle on 34th Street. He proves that if things get delivered to Santa and the judge says, I'm dismissing it, if the US government declares there's a Santa Claus, then there must be a Santa Claus, just based on one question that was being asked and one answer. That's not what happens. It would actually go to a motion to dismiss, or it would have been closing argument in front of the jury. But you cannot just ask a question, turn around to the judge and say, dismiss the case based on this, or the judge will say, I'm going to dismiss the case based on that. Another great scene is A Time to Kill. Great movie and a great scene where he's going on, and he will ask a question, Matthew McConaughey in this movie, and then he'll turn and just start talking about the question. On the flip side, there are movies that do a pretty good job, and I know it's always funny that My Cousin Vinny probably does one of the best jobs of depicting real courtroom scenes. The one thing I'd say about My Cousin Vinny, though, is there's an expert in that case when Marissa Tomei becomes an expert on auto mechanics, and she does get what's called voir dired by the prosecutor in this case. And that would actually happen. And they'd say, well, let me see what her qualifications are. And that part is true. And the judge saying, oh no, I qualify her as an expert, that all would be correct. The problem is no one gets put on the witness stand that wasn't identified as an expert or even an exhibit before the trial. All of that stuff, there's no what's called trial by ambush, and that would be trial by ambush, bringing in someone new, bringing in a new witness, a new piece of evidence. That makes for great movies, that makes for great TV, but that's not what happens in a courtroom. Weeks before we go to trial, we hand everyone the other side, here's all exhibits, here's our witnesses, and they should know what most of those witnesses are going to say if they've done their job, and vice versa. So when we get to trial, there's nothing really new that we're learning at trial that we shouldn't have already known if you've done your job. So that's the biggest difference. It's just not as dramatic. Courtroom movies are great, but a lot of what they show and a lot of what happens and gets done in 15 minutes or an hour just can't happen in a real trial.